Welcome to Marketing Brew Weekly, Morning Brew Inc.'s podcast for the marketing industry. I'm Jenny Wynn.
And I'm Kelsey Sutton.
And if you're hearing ocean waves in the background right now, that's because we are recording this extra special episode from Cannes Spotify Beach.
So exciting. We can see the ocean feet away.
Literally like
Very
behind
tempting.
this camera right now. Yes. It's just Kelsey and I today because Katie couldn't be here, but luckily she has been helping us prep literally for ages leading up to this.
So thankful, yes. And with it being our first time ever at Cannes Lions for both of us, we thought we'd do something a little different on the pod today. We're coming into the festival with some burning questions, what we're looking out for, what we're keeping an eye on, and we're going to ask them right here. A few questions each. We'll, talk about it. And I want to start with something, but we have to get into something else first.
Before we get into that, are you out of breath trying to keep up with AI and all the changes it's constantly creating?
It can be exhausting, we know. That's why Morning Brew created a new podcast with PwC called The Intelligence Shift.
This 8-episode series focuses on how AI is changing and disrupting different industries. Topics span from the music industry's reckoning with AI to how HR is using AI to scout top talent.
An impressive roster of leaders joins host Dan Priest to discuss real stories and real lessons learned from AI.
If you're looking for trusted guidance about how to turn AI strategy into action, this show is for you.
Take a breather and learn from the experts with experience. Listen to The Intelligence Shift wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, Kelsey, kick us off. What's your first burning question that you are going to be looking into while you're here?
I think this is a good way to start the episode because as we came over to Spotify Beach to record this, we kind of got to see it in action. And the it that I'm talking about is experiential. There are activations everywhere. Brands have set up huge things. So my burning question is, what experiential lessons from Cannes Lions get bottled up and exported elsewhere? So the reason I ask you this, Jenny Mai, is I know later, for instance, I'm going to try to head over to the Pinterest Manifestival.
Love.
And something they're doing there is they are bringing an offline experience that they sort of previewed, showed off at Coachella.
We've been talking about it since then.
Yes, exactly. This idea of really unplugging kind of. And I'm wondering, what your thoughts are on sort of the chicken and the egg here with Cannes Lions. The audiences are different, of course. If you're at Coachella, it's for a sort of general audience.
Yeah.
And Cannes Lions has a much more specific target, right? Industry people, clients, etc. But I think there's a lot of similar lessons. So what are you seeing? What are you kind of thinking in the experiential space?
I mean, I think that audience piece is exactly what I'm paying attention to because we were told even before we got here, the second you step off the plane, you'll see ads related to Cannes Lion. They are going to be hitting you with it as soon as you step into Nice. We weren't even in Cannes yet. And that's totally true. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, advertising to an audience full of other marketers and advertisers feels particularly different to me than advertising to the average consumer. But also, every marketer and every advertiser is a consumer as well. So I'm curious to see if there's going to be things that are more if you know, because you're in the industry, or it's this is what we can do for our wide audience, and you are part of that audience as well, and just showing exactly what it is that they can do.
Yeah, and something that I think is so powerful about experiential in particular is that it's all about the feeling. It's all about the vibes. You step into a space and you feel special, you feel important, you feel like you're in on something. And I think that can translate across sort of various KPIs, right? If you are trying to get a consumer to feel really loyal to you, that's a great way to do it. If you're trying to get a client to buy ads with you or have a meeting with you, giving them a space to feel special and welcome and exclusive, etc., it really has the same effect. So I feel like this is such a fun playground to kind of walk around. Are there any experiential activations you're particularly excited to see, Jenny?
I'm also into Pinterest, of course. Any of the entertainment companies is always so fun. I feel like because they have the IP to play with, it's always fun to see it come to life. But really walking along the beach, there's so many that I feel like I could just wander into, which I really do think is the magic of being here. We've been here for what feels like 5 minutes, but also a million years. Shout out to jet lag. But it's such a unique setup that it's all right here on the beach, and you feel called in to explore all of these things. And I think you're so right that does create this special feeling of I'm here, I really should take this all in. And if you are an audience, like a typical consumer audience member, or you are a marketer, like that feeling is exactly what they are trying to create.
Yeah, and we talked about after we finish this record, we're definitely going to spend a little time at Spotify Beach walking around, taking it all in. And I think if you're an experiential marketer, or if you're a marketer who's thinking about experiential in some way, what a good place to sort of live and breathe it IRL. So anyway, that's like my first thing. But Jenny Mai, I want to know some of your questions.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, my big question to start my thoughts off is I'm curious what the impact of actually moving Creator Beach / the official creator programming from Cannes Lions itself, like down to the beach. Because in previous years, it was at the top of the Palais, and this year it's getting its beachfront space, which is a really big deal at the festival itself, and it's sponsored by Adobe. And the reason I'm curious why the location matters is because it's literally physically bigger, right? But also, as we said, like being part of the beach makes you feel like you really have arrived. And I feel like the conversation around Cannes and creators for the past several years is like, creators have arrived, creators are here, like it's really the big thing. But this year is its third year and it's showing up in this even bigger way. And I'm curious to see how creators will be received, but also kind of emphasized as they are down on this beach.
Yeah, I feel like Katie has written about this a lot. Absolutely. And I believe this is the 4th year in a row that there's been a big creator track. And something that I think is interesting about this festival is like that only 4 years, it almost feels like, why did it take that long?
I know. Every time we talk about creators, I'm like, it's only been around for that long? Like, it feels like it's been my whole life. Yeah. Which, I'm actually 4 years old.
But the thing that I think is so interesting, and Katie talked with experts kind of heading into it, like there are the creator presence and the creator awareness of the importance of this festival has grown kind of in tandem with the increased investment. So it used to be sort of at the top of the Palais, it was a few days long, and that's it. Now there's so much like moved into the action, and I really feel like that is reflective of the moment that we're in, but also it's almost a lagging indicator, right? It's like, of course they belong down here, you know, like why wouldn't they? But I do think it's sort of interesting, like, and I'm talking to, later this week, I'm going to be talking to Dave Justice from Adobe. And one of the things I really want to talk to him about is why Adobe has made this big investment in creators. What is their strategy there? And why do they kind of want to center themselves at this conversation around creator marketing?
Yeah, especially like in connection with creators so strongly. Yeah, they've been showing up in the creator space a ton. Earlier this year, I went to Spotter Showcase, which is a creator platform, and they do a kind of like their own upfront style presentation. They started it last year, and Adobe also was a big presence at that event, and they got on stage. They're like, we really like enjoy working with these creators. We are like a big part of their journey. So it's not like they're showing up out of nowhere. And of course, there's like a natural connection with a lot of creators using Adobe products, like using Premiere Pro, using Photoshop. Like those are tools that have been like legacy tools for a long time. So I can see the connection, but I feel like just seeing their continued investment into the space, while at the same time also talking about like their AI products. And I think they do something interesting with like talking about creativity and how much they care about creators and showing up in this type of manner, but also being like, we're also there on the AI front. Like it's not one or the other, it's really two at the same time.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up AI because that is one of my questions going into the week, and not just AI. What is it? That's not my question.
Yes.
I think we've covered that. I think my question is really, how much is the changing sentiment around AI going to be reflected in the conversation this week? What I mean by that is I feel like in the last few years, it's been so much optimism around AI. How can we use it? What is it going to look like? It's going to, it's, you know, transformational, et cetera. I think that's still there. But Jasmine Sheena on our team, an amazing reporter on our team, wrote about how seems to be, she talked to people ahead of the festival, seems to be maybe a sentiment of level setting, a little bit of a let's rein this in. Let's talk about what it looks like practically and pragmatically. And I think that is a big shift. And I really do wonder if we are going to see that. I think that one of the things is not only are people coming a year smarter with it, but the conversation around AI has sort of changed. It's sort of like, what is possible? What's not possible? I imagine there's going to be conversations about how expensive tokens in the AI space are. What's worth it? Like, is it just all AI all the time? Or is there a little bit more of a, let's kind of figure out what is the most effective way of using it instead of let's just inject it everywhere.
Like, make sure everyone knows that we are using AI.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the conversation around AI at South by this year, which I attended. And I had a conversation with some folks at PwC about kind of the same idea of like, this year is really about the implementation of AI rather than just like, AI has arrived, like, look what we can do with it. But there is still like a push and pull of how consumers are responding to use of AI. Like, I feel like when you're in industry spaces, it can feel very much like, oh, like, it's so exciting. AI is like the tech du jour. Like, of course we're using it. Here's all the ways we're using it and how it's changing everything about our business. But there is a reality that like, there is still a subsect of consumers that may not respond in that same way and have some apprehension there. Aren't you also moderating a poll about this very subject?
Yeah. On Wednesday, I'm talking with Harris Poll, the 4As, and Infillion. And I'm really excited about it because I got some data from the Harris Poll that we'll talk about more on Wednesday. But it really is kind of about like, you know, how are consumers feeling about AI and how are they responding to it in different marketing messaging? And I think that that's such a, you know, central element because again, one of the things that's really interesting about this festival is the audiences are different, but whatever is messaged here can also kind of leach into kind of consumer sentiment, right? And so it's sort of, and of course, the consumer is at the core of anything that a business is doing. And so how consumers feel about it, I think really has to be central. And I think that that's just like a really interesting push and pull. So I'm really wondering kind of what that's gonna sound like.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, on the opposite side of AI, well, some people might not want to say opposite, but it is in the creative field. One of my burning questions is I'm curious how prevalent microdramas will be in creative conversations across the festival. If you don't know what a microdrama is, get on it. But it is like short, soapy, episodic content, primarily on social. There are also dedicated microdrama apps that have really been growing in the US. It started in China. And the reason I'm curious about this specific creative format is I have been paying attention to it since around the holidays earlier this year. Maybelline did a holiday campaign that was in the microdrama format. I wrote a story that published in May about like this like really being the era of microdramas. And honestly, I was getting embargoed press releases about several companies like announcing their microdramas at this festival. So I was like, it continues to be a conversation. And I'm kind of curious whether the conversation will be about like, look, we're doing this thing and it's growing so much and it resonates on both social and entertainment companies are investing in it and big names in the entertainment industries are investing in it. Or I'm curious if it'll shift a little bit beyond the like, we're doing it right now to like, where does this actually have the most impact?
Where does it lead us to almost?
Yeah, because I think you can do microdramas on TikTok, on Instagram, and that is a really engaging format. But then there are also these platforms that are specifically made for microdrama audiences. And I think that taps into a really interesting conversation of like, do you meet people where they're at or do you kind of bring them to where you are? You already have an established audience. And I think that goes beyond microdramas or social. It's really just something that marketers are thinking about all the time.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I think microdramas do is they live in a very interesting space as we talk about marketers trying to kind of make their brands into entertainment companies. Like this has been a long time coming, but I think it's sort of like, how do we entertain as we market? Because otherwise nobody's going to waste their time like watching our ads or spending any time with us, particularly on social when there's literally infinite other things you could be looking at any given time. So I feel like a microdrama is a great kind of example of like a solve, but I don't know how permanent it is. Is it a fad?
Exactly.
Is it a permanent sort of thing?
Right.
I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from the format though, either way. I mean, and I'm sort of wondering maybe it is here to stay for at least a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Is it just like a format that is really exciting right now, or does it have lessons beyond the format, or will it have staying power itself? It's something that I hope people will definitely be talking about this week.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Kelsey, hit us with your next question.
Okay, well, I think that this leads very well in, because I think something I'm really interested in when you talk about like lessons to take out of one format into the other. One of my questions is, it's sort of a comment, but I'm kind of like, is sports marketing, can we all agree that sports marketing is just marketing?
Right.
And is Cannes Lions a great place to prove that thesis? So last year we sent Alyssa Myers from our team, and she spent the entire time, she's our senior reporter and she covers sports marketing, and she spent the entire time talking to executives about their sports marketing strategy. And I think I think we were onto something.
Yes, totally. What I find crazy about this topic, though, is that this is actually the first year that Cannes Lions programming has a sports track. So it's a 2-day track, and that is panels and events that are actually through Cannes Lions. But then Sport Beach has had a presence here for several years, and that's why Alyssa had so much access and time to dedicate to like just sports, because that presence has been prevalent on the beach for years beyond the actual official festival.
And I think the thing that we talk about a lot is like sports marketing, it's specific, but it's also becoming broader and broader, because if you have an athlete, they might have a relationship with their audience that looks very much like a creator relationship. They might be a creator themselves. They might host a podcast, or they post on social. They have a huge social following. They're striking up deals that are not kind of a traditional like Wheaties ad, but are much more modern and feel very real. And then, you know, a former athlete might sort of then become a lifestyle creator, right? So like it can just bleed into so many other things. And I think because of that, it's like there are things that are specific to sports, but I also just think it's kind of a microcosm of all the other things. And I think because it's such a huge year for sports marketing, I mean, people are watching World Cup matches while we're here.
There are World Cup events for sure,
You know, it's very much in the air. And so I really wonder kind of what lessons will be taken away from the sports marketing programming, and how that, again, it might reflect like, it's just marketing, you know,
definitely.
Like let's call it, you know, it's beyond, it's out of containment.
I think
everywhere.
Something that like represents that idea overall is like the increasing number of non-endemic brands that are showing up in sports marketing as a whole. And I think we talked about this before we started the episode, but like CeraVe is one of those brands showing up at Cannes Lions. They're doing something with Kevin Durant, and it's like they're not typically a sports brand, you know? You wouldn't be like, yes, CeraVe sports. And the fact that they're showing up here in a big way, having this event, is, I think, a good example of that happening more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Jenny Mai, what's your final question? I feel like we probably have 500.
We have more. Yes, absolutely. These questions will be like literally everything we're thinking about for the rest of the week. So we have more than this. But my last one for today is, I'm curious how much people are actually paying attention to the awards. Because Cannes Lions is an award show. That is actually the reason why we are gathered here.
Yes, there are awards every day this week.
And it is being announced throughout the week. There's like big awards towards the end of the week. But the reason I actually was thinking about this is that I got a message from Christina Monlos, our colleague and senior reporter, and she has been before, and she specifically was giving me some tips, and she told me that the bottom of the Palais is where they host all of the work, and every creative that she's talked to over the years has been like, it's so important to spend time down there and see the work that is winning. And I'm curious if people are actually doing that. I feel like when she said that to me, it was like people say that they really need to do it, and it almost becomes like a second thought after all of the other stuff that is on the beach that takes over your attention, all of the meetings that you're going to, all of the people that you're trying to make sure you say hi to and rub elbows with. Like, the awards are actually why we're here, but it takes like conscious effort to go actually like engage with them and like draw creative inspiration from it, which I think is actually kind of the whole point.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of love that, because I think even when we were building our schedules, we were saying, oh my gosh, you could be truly sprinting full
Oh
speed
my God.
from every single thing that you get invited to or that's available. Like there's so much, but at the end of the day, like this is a festival about creativity. And I think what creativity requires is to slow down. At least I think about this in my
Yeah,
personal,
definitely.
I'm not making award-winning ads anytime.
You could be. Maybe it'll be your workup for an award
Maybe,
next
we'll
year.
see. But you know, when you slow down and you actually take the time to really process like, oh, why did this work? Like, why am I
Right.
so affected by this? Or,
Right.
gosh, this is so genius. Like, I really think that's where you can kind of find the inspiration and even just kind of the appreciation for what the industry is sort of capable of
Yeah.
at their best.
Yeah, like this is the best of the best. Like this is
yeah.
what you want to be learning from, whether that's from the panels and from the words that are being exchanged or from just like taking a second and looking at the actual stuff that is being recognized.
Yeah.
I do think something that's interesting about the awards presence this year is that 10% of all work were submitted by brands this year, which is up 8% from 2025.
Oh.
And there will be approximately 400 brands across Cannes. I think I was like a little surprised by that because in my work, I focus on the brand side a lot, but Cannes Lions is still really about the agencies, even though the activations you see across the beach are really brand centric. And I think that's a good reminder of like the agencies that make this work are a huge, huge part of this industry and they make up a big part of the awards that are the reason why people are gathered.
Yeah, absolutely. But even the indication of more brands sort of being there, I think indicates that shifting dynamic, you know, in the agency and brand kind of relationship. So I think something that we'll definitely need to talk about is after the awards come out, what sort of creative themes really come to the forefront, like are really visible and evident in you know, some of the work. I mean, some of the short lists are out, but you don't know who's going to win until they win. So, you know.
But even being on the short list, I feel like there are themes that we can definitely get out of that. And that is something that we'll be paying attention to for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's where our thoughts are centered. And a lot of it's going to guide what we're going to be actually doing this week. So Kelsey, do you want to walk us through what you'll be up to while you're here in France?
Yes. So in addition to moderating that panel that I mentioned, I'm moderating another panel also about AI, but about trust and news publishers, which I'm really interested in digging into.
As journalists, for sure.
And then, of course, I'm going to try to see as much of the festival as I can. But I will be interviewing nearly a dozen executives from a bunch of really big brands and really interesting brands and agencies. I'm talking to them about so many different topics. We have 12, 15
Literally
topics. So many topics per interviewee. But you can follow along and watch those videos on our LinkedIn. So if you don't follow us on LinkedIn, you should. Those will be posted there. They will also be on our site and in our newsletter. So make sure you follow us on LinkedIn or are subscribed to our newsletter that will be coming out all week.
Yeah, literally.
And what about you, Jenny? What
follow
are
us
you going to be up to?
Yeah, so I will also be meeting with various people. I have a million meetings set up while I'm here, and then documenting literally everything I'm doing while traipsing about the beach. There are worse ways to spend my working hours,
absolutely,
for sure.
Yes.
But I'll be documenting it all via videos on social on our Instagram. So also follow us there if you don't follow us already.
Yes.
And we'll be sending out our daily dispatches in the newsletter as well.
Yes.
So really everything that we're doing, you can find us.
We really plan this week out well because at the end of the week on Thursday afternoon, we're doing a very special live in front of a studio audience for the first time. May I add, taping of Marketing Brew Weekly. That will be here at FQ Beach. So if you're here and you want to come see us live, please come stop by. We'd love to have you. We'd love to meet you. And if you're listening at home, that episode will come out next week. So you'll get all of our takeaways, all of the lessons we've learned, all the questions. We're going to try to answer them all. And that will come out next week.
Yes, we're so excited. A little nervous, but very excited. Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have your own burning questions and you want to talk to us about it, send us an email at mkbw@morningbrew.com, which you can find in the show notes. And we'll catch you next week.